Buckeye fans. I'm Patrick Murphy here with Dave Biddle of Bucknuts and 24/7 Sports. We just got done talking to Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, a little bonus Chris Holtman. We won't get into that here. Penn State this weekend, obviously biggest game of the season, arguably the biggest game of the college football season. There's a couple you can make arguments for. We'll start with probably what people are most concerned about. I got 3 text messages during the press conference from friends asking about injuries. Didn't get a lot. So what do you make of what Ryan did say and kind of where the Buckeyes stand here on a Tuesday of game week?
Yeah, there's 5 guys we're really looking at. 3 running backs, obviously, with Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, now Chip Trayanum, and then corner Denzel Burke, and who am I leaving out? Who's the other one? And then, of course, Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. And Coach Day was asked about them, kind of like, lumped them all together, and he said, I'm not really going to get into that, but we hope to have all of those guys this Saturday. Now, I'll be shocked if all 5 of those guys play. Emeka especially, I think, that seemed to be the way Coach Day answered that question last week when he said it. The good news, it's not serious. To me, that seemed like more than a 1-week thing. I hope I'm wrong because Emeka is obviously, and Coach Day got into this, Emeka is a huge part of what they do, and he's one of the best wide receivers in college football. They do have depth there, so that helps. But I'll be surprised if Emeka plays. That's just me reading between the lines. With the running backs, it's really tough to tell because we don't really know what's going on with Trey and Mayan. I think Chip will play. That's just a guess. I know he got dinged, and it was smart that they didn't bring him back out there. But my guess is that Chip will play, but we'll see. And then Denzel Burke. I don't know. I don't have a great feel for that. Hopefully he's able to play, but we shall see. But I think if you're hoping to learn anything from what Coach Day said today, you're going to be disappointed because he's not going to talk much about injuries.
Let me ask you this then. In terms of importance, how do you rank these guys in terms of the top guy being the guy they need the most against Penn State? And you want them all. I don't want to downplay anybody being out, but who are the most important guys that you would think need to play this week for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, definitely number 1 would be Denzel Burke. Denzel would be at the top, and this is the best they've been at corner in a few years, at least since 2019. So they do have decent depth there with Bucknuts and Hancock and Jermaine Matthews, even though he's a true freshman. But Denzel Burke is one of the top corners in the country, and he's going to be a first-round pick. You need him in a game like this. So Burke would be 1. Emeka would be 2. The only reason and I love Emeka. I almost feel bad putting him 2, but they're so deep at wide receiver. I'll go Burke 1, Emeka 2, and then the running backs, basically, I would go probably Travion, Chip, Mayan.
Yeah, that's how I would do it. I do think with Burke, if how I think they will do it, which is what they did most of the time, is moving Bucknuts to the boundary corner, Hancock to the field, and then playing Sonny Styles as that nickel safety. Now, they did play Jermaine Matthews some and Hancock as the nickel safety. You certainly lose some of the press man physicality that Denzel Burke gives you. Bucknuts, they've played a lot of off coverage where he's been very good. It's just a different thing on the boundary side. Jim Knowles touched on that a little bit. And I think with Emeka, Xavier Johnson's been good. Carnell Tate obviously made some plays, but you lose just that experience when you're talking about Tate. And the one play, Kyle McCord was under pressure, got out of the pressure, and threw this lob downfield, hit Xavier Johnson in the hands. I think Emeka Egbuka probably catches that pass just because he's really good at that. And Xavier Johnson, not to take anything away from him, but that's not his game. His game is kind of the shorter stuff and making plays with the ball in his hands. So, I agree with you completely. Those 2 guys not playing would certainly change things, at least for the Buckeyes, which would be unfortunate in such a big game. Looking at the running back side of it, Dalton Hayden's gotten a lot of talk dating back to last season, frankly, when he came in. It seems to me, and I've said this a few times, the only way he gets on the field is if other guys get hurt. I don't know why. Ryan Day won't touch on it. You think you know what's going on with Dalton Hayden?
Yeah, I know you know as well. It's got to be pass pro. I think we finally have cracked the code because the question was basically, is it pass pro or is it ball security in practice? It's got because when the lights come on, Dalton Hayden always produces, and we haven't seen him fumble in games. But there has been some times, you watch the games and he's not that great of a blocker. Today, Ryan Day said, absolutely, ball security is not a problem. He said that's the number 1 thing for a running back is ball security. You can check that box for Dalton. He's been good in practice, good in game. That's not the issue. Then he went on and on about how the best thing with Dallin is when the ball's in his hands. So it's nothing about Dallin's running or his vision or his toughness or anything like that. It's got to be pass pro. It has to be pass pro. And Day kind of even hinted at that because he answered multiple questions about Dallin. So yeah, I would be shocked if it's not pass pro. And as Pat mentioned when we were talking before we went live, it's probably blocking in general. Pat noticed when he was rewatching the game, there was a play where maybe he didn't, it wasn't that Hayden didn't do great on the play, but he just kind of got in the way. He's just not ready, and it's not a toughness thing. He's a physical runner when he's out there for a smallish running back at 205 pounds. It's not a toughness thing. It's probably a technique thing is my guess. But I think we have finally cracked the code of why Dallin Hayden only plays in case of emergency. We'll see if that changes going forward. And Coach Day was asked, is the redshirt plan now out the window? And Coach Day stopped short of saying that. He said, no, we don't know if we're going to redshirt him. We don't have to make that decision now. He can play up to 4 games and still redshirt. He's only played 2. And he said, we're going to do what's best for the team. And he said, I know Dallin wants to help the team any way he can.
For me, the redshirt thing, great if it happens, but to plan on it is weird. And I know you have 3 running backs ahead of him, but what do you need Dallin Hayden for in 3 seasons? You can't be thinking about that right now, in my mind. I know that they're trying to always game plan, and they don't have a running back in this freshman class. So I get it to some degree, but I think they've just kind of overthought it too much. There was no reason not to get him out there against Maryland a little bit, especially late in the game. Now, I know Mayan Williams didn't play a ton, so it made sense to get him in the game, but I think you could have used him more. I just think that you're overthinking it a little bit too much. If he only plays 4 games by the end of the year and you can redshirt him, great. That's just my thought. The quarterback run, the red zone packages, you seem to like it. I don't like it. I don't like any time a team does it. I know there are examples, Tim Tebow, a little JT Barrett, where it works. I just think when you're bringing guys in and out, you're giving away some stuff. And I know Devin threw a great ball to Brandon Innes. He threw a really poor ball to G. Scott in those tight situations there. I'm not sure any team's worried about Devin throwing out of that, or at least throwing accurately in those tight windows down in the red zone. I also think Kyle could do some of that stuff. And as you mentioned when we talked on Saturday after the game, well, maybe you're worried about getting him hurt. Just your impressions of the red zone package and how you think they might if they continue to use it.
Yeah, I do like it as a changeup. I don't think you need to major in it. I don't think every time you're near the goal line they need to bring number 33 in. But I do think it's a good changeup. I like that I think they're going to at least do it some against Penn State this Saturday. I don't think it was just window dressing against Purdue, but at the very least, it gives opposing defensive coordinators now something else to plan for.
That's true.
But you're planning for Ohio State up to this point. You don't have to worry about the quarterback run at all. Even now with McCord, at least he pulled it once and got 9 yards, and the very next play, quarterback sneak. It's like, boom, boom. Did that just happen? Little stuff like that is so huge in football. It's so huge to pick up cheap first downs like that. So, yeah, I like it. I like that it gives defensive coordinators something else to plan for, because they have to at least have that, even if it's a minor threat of running ball, whether it's Kyle or you bring Devin in. And then, yeah, Devin looked really bad on one throw, like you said, and really good on the deep throw. If people key on him too much as the runner, he can get the job done throwing the ball. I mean, there's a reason that this battle was so close during camp. I believe Ryan Day when he says it went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Kyle eventually won it, but it was a tight battle. You can see why, and Devin's a willing runner. I like that too. Is he Michael Vick out there? Of course not. But you can see he's tough, and I like that wrinkle.
Yeah, I wonder if on Saturday against Penn State they let McCord, Day was asked about that and just kind of didn't, maybe, and I wonder if maybe they were setting that up to then do it with McCord when Penn State's not looking for it, for instance, because like you said, that 9-yard run, I think now, again, there was the Indiana play earlier in the season where he read the whole thing wrong and didn't get in the end zone. But I think if you've practiced it a little bit more than you probably did before then, I think Kyle's perfectly capable of doing it too. I'm just never a fan of that back and forth rotation. I think it works better in theory than in principle. But if you can get it to work, and again, like I said, there are teams that have, then I think you've got something there because for whatever reason they've struggled in red zone. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of wrinkles they can do. And maybe there is some throwing out of it that they want to do with Devin Brown. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Penn State, a lot of the conversation in the press conference was they're not an explosive team. They're going to methodically move the ball. Time of possession is big. That kind of fits what Ohio State's defense has done this year, keeping teams in front of them, not allowing the big plays. How do you think, from what you heard in here, Jim Knowles will handle this defense this offense, with Drew Aller and these running backs and
Yeah, it does play into what Ohio State's done this year. And as you asked Coach Knowles, he doesn't like the term bend but don't break. And
I don't think he liked that question.
You go, why not? And he goes, I just don't like the way it sounds. He's like, well, how would you describe the defense? He's like, it's one that's not giving up points, like keeping points off the scoreboard. So it's basically the same thing. But and Coach Knowles was smiling when he said it. He's like, I just don't like the way bend but don't break sounds. But yeah, it does kind of play into what Ohio State does. Now, what we've seen from Penn State through 6 games, they haven't played anybody. They've certainly been saving some stuff. They have not been throwing the ball down the field. Now, I will say the few times they have, Drew Aller has not looked that good throwing the ball down the field, which is interesting because he's a big, strong kid, strong arm. So that's probably going to come eventually with Drew Aller. It's a very small sample size, not just in terms of games, but in terms of how often they've tried it. But again, when they have tried to throw the ball deep, it hasn't worked out well. They've been a dink and dunk offense. They've got 2 really good running backs whose average yards per carry don't jump off the screen this year. I think they're both averaging about like 4 yards per carry, but they're both really good running backs. So Penn State's definitely been saving some stuff. Ohio State has to mix things up. They have to mix things up, be aggressive at times. Then when Penn State thinks you're going to blitz, you're backing off. Things of that nature. You've got to win the chess match in a game like this.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting against Purdue. They actually blitzed a decent amount, I think more than they have all season, based on the numbers. You could do that against Purdue. Not a great offensive line. They got even more banged up in that game, so it was effective there. So I don't know if that was to show Penn State, hey, we've still got this if we need it, or if that was just, hey, we know we can do this against Purdue. They're probably not going to burn us down the field. So I think this will show us what Jim Knowles wants to do in these big games. We saw it against Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't have great receivers. It was that bend but don't break. We're not calling it bend but don't break.
Okay. We can call it.
Yeah. Will they be more aggressive in this game? Will it burn them? I tend to think they'll still sit back a little bit, but I do agree with you. You have to pick your moments. Tyleik Williams is a guy who got asked about quite a bit. He's been asked about a decent amount this year, and rightfully so. Jim Knowles was asked about his ability to bat down balls, and if that's something they call, and he said, yeah, just call the play where you bat the ball down. That's he's been arguably this team's most improved player, I think, or at least on the defensive side of the ball. You could argue maybe even their most important defensive player right now. What have you made of his play and just kind of the progression we've seen of him through 6 games?
Yeah, it's having a big D tackle like that absolutely wrecks the line of scrimmage and is athletic enough to then make plays. It is huge. It's an offense's nightmare. And the biggest thing with Tyleik, as we all know, like he showed flashes as a sophomore and even as a true freshman. Now it's like he's doing that, but doing it like 50 plays per game, not like 15 or 20. So he doesn't necessarily look like a guy who's in great shape, but he's done something with cardio because he's out there. He can play, it seems like 50 plays and not get gassed. He looks like he's every bit of 340 pounds, and I love it. I love it that, you get a big 340-pound D tackle that's athletic. And Jim Knowles said his best attribute is his athleticism. He said he's a big, strong guy at the point of attack. He's great at that. But he's even better, with his athleticism and shedding blocks and making plays. So he is turning into exactly what you want to see from a D tackle, and I love it. I also think JT Tuimoloau's playing good football. Jack Sawyer coming off his best game as a Buckeye. I've always been a big fan of Mike Hall's game. You got Caden Curry coming off the bench. They've got some depth at DN with Kenyatta Jackson as well. Ty Hamilton at D tackle. So I love the 4 starters. I like the depth. It's D lines coming together for sure. But yeah, Tyleik Williams has been, if it hasn't been Denzel Burke, Tyleik Williams has been their best defensive player. And dare I say, it's having I guess it depends on who you're playing, but having a D tackle that just wrecks the line of scrimmage to me is even more important than having a lockdown corner. I mean, you could argue either way. It depends on who you're playing, but I love the way Tyleik Williams is playing.
Yeah, and a good time for this happened because you need to get after Penn State a little bit. It's going to be very interesting, this game, I think, because I think both teams feel good about their defense. Both teams still have some questions about their offense. Maybe not internally, but we certainly do. It's going to be kind of which team makes the mistake. It feels like one of those games, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be tight. It's going to be, who can avoid the error that causes, whether it's a turnover or whatnot. I do think this is going to be a very interesting test. I think we say it most weeks that we're going to know more about the team afterwards. I do really think after this, we'll safely say, okay, one of these teams is a Big Ten national championship contender, and the other team, maybe not so much coming out of it. And obviously a loss affects things in that capacity and kind of with the way other things are shaping up. But this seems like a game that's put up or shut up time for either team.
Yeah, I wish we could just fast forward to Saturday.
Yeah.
This is really, we're going to know a lot about both teams, and obviously we're focused on Ohio State. Yeah, one thing Ohio State has in their favor, so to speak, on this game is they do have one big game already under their belt. Going at Notre Dame at night, ask USC how easy that is. So is Notre Dame a great team? I don't think they're a great team, but playing them at their place at night is a tough test, and the Buckeyes passed that. Barely, but they did. So I think that helps. But, yeah, I think this is going to be, as Patrick said, I'll just echo what he said. We're going to know on Saturday one of these teams is left standing as a national championship contender, and one of them is going to be sitting there pretty much on the outside looking in.
Yeah, an advantage Buckeyes, this being in Ohio Stadium. I do think this is a huge game for James Franklin. He's struggled against the Buckeyes. It's he's gotten Penn State close, but they haven't been able to get over that hump. I know they've beaten Michigan, but it just hasn't happened the way that their talent. And I think obviously equally as important for Ryan Day because of what's happened in some of the rivalry games, and you need to keep up the chance to go undefeated in Ann Arbor. But there's a lot riding on this game. I think we can safely say that. Like you said, can't wait for Saturday. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I think we covered most everything that we need to out of that. I'm Patrick Murphy, Dave Biddle. We're from Bucknuts, 24/7 Sports. We got stuff already up on the site. Dave has something up on the injuries. Steve's got the videos going up right now, so stay tuned all week. We will have more tomorrow night with players and Ryan Day here at the Woody. No Thursday this week. You don't like this change?
No, I like having my Ryan Day on Thursday afternoons. I like it. Yeah. But that's gone away. Now we're getting Ryan after practice.
He will still do the radio show, though. So if you're used to listening to that on Thursdays, you can still do that. But we'll have plenty of coverage. Stay tuned to Bucknuts, 24/7 Sports. Thanks, guys.